Hello and welcome to Modeller's Monday Roundup, Episode 4.
So this is the next project for Kit of Armour. It's Airfits code A50040. It's 1/72 scale then and now, which features a Eurofighter Typhoon and a Supermarine Spitfire Mark 2A. So opening the box, we come up with this instruction sheet, or instruction booklet, which covers both the builds. It is total of 12 pages featuring both builds. So there's the instructions for the Spitfire, and then we start on the instructions for the build of this Eurofighter Typhoon. And obviously included with both of them is the instructions for paint and guide and all the decals. Obviously in the box then we do have a decal sheet, which covers, again, both the kits. At the bottom are decals which are applied to both, and then we have a section of which is just for the Spitfire, and then decals for just the Eurofighter Typhoon. Put that to one side. Also in the kits is this bag. This is a display stand for the two models to go on. However, for this kit we won't be using this because we're actually going to hopefully build them as grounded aircraft at an air show. So they will be discarded, possibly used for another project later on. Also in this comes this bag, which as a starter kit comes with all the paints, glue and the brushes. However, we're going to discard the paints, as we have found with previous kits such as this. These paints aren't actually that good, so we will use the proper paints instead. So again, they will be discarded, but we will keep the glue and the brushes. Also, we have two other bags, and these two bags are both the planes themselves. This one here is the bag for the Spitfire, and this larger bag covers the Eurofighter Typhoon. Of the two kits, we will start with the Spitfire. So we've already tore the top off, ready to open it. So as we take the parts out of the bag, we have two styrene sprues, 1 and 2, they cover all the parts. It does also feature a pilot, but again, as we have already said previously, we're going to build them as a grounded aircraft for an air show, whereas this would be used as if it was in flight. So the pilot will be again discarded, put into our spares pot. Inside was another bag, and in this bag covers our clear glazing for the Spitfire again. So as we take a look at these two styrene sprues, the first job we will do is place them into warm soapy water and give them a good clean. This will help get rid of any leftover detergent or rinse aid that was done through the moulding at the factory. Once that's been done, we will then be able to give them a spray of undercoat, of which we will use a Halford's Auto Primer white. So the sprues have been given a thorough wash in some soapy warm water. Now it's time to get it primered, for which we're using a Halford's primer, and it's a white primer. So this is the first sprue to be done. So that's the first side done, and now we'll do the other side once the turntable stops moving around. And again, just give that one another quick spray. Turn it back round again. There we go. So that's the first sprue done, which will now be put to one side to dry. So we now basically put the undercoat onto the second sprue as before. Again, just get everywhere you can with it. And again, let that to dry. Okay, so with everything now primed and ready, we'll start with some construction. But again, as I've mentioned with the previous models, before anything gets glued together, I always paint it first. Other modelers like to do the construction paint afterwards. No, everyone has their own set ways. So we're going to start with the cockpit. Now the instructions tell me to do the pilot first. However, because the pilot's not being used, we're going to skip that bit. So we're going to start with the construction, which will be with the cockpit seat here and the base in which it will sit, which is this part here. And these will get painted with an interior colour. Again, the instructions haven't given us any idea of what that is. So after a bit of research, we found out we will be using this. It's a Humboldt colour, Humboldt 90, which is a beigey green. Okay, so the seat, cockpit seat and its base is now done and is ready to be put to one side. The next part will take us on to the propeller parts, of which there's 3 which make up the whole section. Obviously you have the main propeller and obviously the 3 blades there, and that will have this part along with this very tiny part there. All of this will be painted before being glued together, and we're using a Humboldt matte black number 33. The 3 parts of which make up the propeller have all been painted and taken off the sprue. In taking them off the sprue, you can see obviously there are some areas of which have not been have got paint markers. So once it's all been put together, this will be touched up. So the first 2 parts have been put together. We'll just grab these tweezers so I can show you. Hopefully you can just about see. There's the first 2 little bits, of which we will now put into the main propeller. So the first thing we're going to do is obviously add a bit of glue. To the area of which obviously we know has got to be glued into place. So just give it a good coat of glue. There we go. And then hopefully it should just fit nicely into place. Of which it does. So there is the main propeller housing all put together. Once the glue's dried, we will then be able to give it its touch-ups with the paint. So the next part to be worked on will be the 2 halves of the fuselage, here and here. So we're actually going to need 4 paints to do this part. The interior, which as we see here, will be done in a grey, of which we're using Humboldt 165. However, the outsides, we're going to use a combination of 3 colours, as there's a 3 colour scheme to this, of which will then create the camouflage details. So the first stage will be to paint it all in Humboldt 90, which is like a sky blue and very light green, such as what we've already used on the seating. We will then, once that's dry, we then give it a good dark green areas. Although any areas that have to remain in this colour will then be masked off. So once that's done, we will then make sure everything's masked, ready to put in the final part of the camouflage of the brown. Okay, so the interior have been given their paint, and if you remember we mentioned earlier about the exterior being given 3 different paints. So we're going to start, and firstly we will give the whole area of the exterior a coat of Humboldt 90, which is a light beige green. As you can see from our seating of the cockpit, that is the colour it will be. So that is what we do first. Stage 1 of the 3 painting schemes for the outside of the fuselage halves has been completed. So now this is done, the areas of which will be made in this colour will be masked, and then we will put in another coat of paint with the second scheme. Okay, so now the masking has been applied on both fuselage halves. The second stage of painting will now be done. So all the non-masked areas will now be painted in a Humboldt dark green, number 30. Now been applied. So the dark green has now been applied, and next will be to mask up the areas ready for camouflage. So with the masking on the fuselage halves now done, we will now give them the camouflage paint using Humboldt Dark Earth number 29. So that is now the Dark Earth applied. So now we'll be able to take the masking tape off and have a look at how it is finished. And now we look at the completed fuselage halves with the masking tape off. There are some obvious touch-ups that will need to be done, but these can wait till a later stage. Now at a stage where both the fuselage halves have been fitted together, along with the cockpit seating and the propeller. However, as you can see, there are some areas, such as along this top seam here. If we look underneath, the seams underneath as well, there's some gaps. Therefore, I'm going to require some filling, of which we're going to use some model filler for. And once that's been applied, we will then give it a sand down. And afterwards, any required paint touch-ups that needs to be done, i.e. such to the propeller, obviously where we've sanded, etc., will then be applied.
Okay guys, good morning from Vancouver again. I was going to give you a break from my ramblings this week, but I've done quite a few changes on the layout again. So just give you a quick run through them. I won't keep you too long today. I decided I was not really happy with the large building at this end, so I went back to the retaining walls and I cut down the depot building so it's more of a low relief now, and replace the tunnel. For me it works a bit better. I've just ballasted so you can see the paper on the building will wrinkle until it dries out again, because when you're doing the ballasting or the groundwork you always give it a good soaking before you apply the glue and the water. You can probably see how it's all a bit wet here as well. This is going to necessitate a track clean now, so my next job will be to lift the rest of the buildings off and we shall clean track, everybody's favourite job. And down at the bottom end I've now replaced the bridge. It just kind of finishes the run of the retaining wall off all the way around, so it doesn't just finish in a little brick wall. And now I have created just a little bit of a backyard area there, which I will do something with, just not sure yet. And the dreaded chimney, this chimney's been on and off so many layouts in so many positions I've lost count of them, but what the hell, it's a nice model, so there she is. I also decided to put back the depot maintenance building, so on a stabling point of this size she would have been used to carry out air exams, which is just like on a car, is lights, levels, usually brake blocks. Quite often brake blocks would be changed as well. These are not big jobs, so most locomotives would fuel into the depot building if necessary, a quick air exam, back out and then stable, ready for the next duty, or straight back out onto the next duty. So nothing much more than that, but it's a bit different again. I'm a bit happier with it. I'm a terrible person for this. I always get ideas in my head, then I have to try the ideas, then I do a lot of work with the ideas, then I find out I don't really like them, then I go back to what I had before. Can't tell you the amount of spare building kits I have upstairs in the wardrobe, or the ones that I've actually thrown away. Quite a few again, but anyway, so that's the general look of the layout now. She's almost certainly going to stay like that. This is the best combo, the best fit for me that I've come up with. Still need to bed in the groundwork around the base of the building there, which I'm going to do now before I decide to track clean. So anyway, that's it. Just a quick update from me, nothing much more. Shall we do a quick run of a locomotive using my technical finger? Bachmann's 37421. She was resprayed from a different livery. I have no idea what that was now because I did it a year or so ago. I had a point where I was spraying nearly anything that moved. It's a Bachmann 37, lovely mover. And here, lovely mover, that doesn't sound right, does it? Well, lovely locomotive anyway. Let's see where she ends up, not too far because she'll be coming off. We'll leave her there. Anyway, that's it folks, that's it for this week. Probably as quick as you're ever going to get out of me. Once I get talking, I do get a little carried away. But anyway, there she's, as she's going to be. Thanks for listening, and a longer one next time. Might show you some of my other hobbies. Okay? Stay safe.
Alrighty guys, now the last locomotive I have here, I'm going to show you. This is locomotive number 5. Now there's a couple reasons I did this. The first reason is I felt like Disneyland Railroad, they had a number 5 locomotive, which is the Ward Kimball. So why couldn't us East Coast guys have one? So I kind of made my own what if locomotive to go along with my custom consist. Now I will silence the sounds in the engine and kind of go through each individual car. I'll pull them up and let you guys look at them. There is one car I could not fit on here because it is just inordinately long because of its load, that it won't take the curves, but I will show you guys that separately. The other reason was I just had another 10-wheeler laying around and I just felt like it was time to do something completely different, and I wanted to kind of push myself and see if I could work with a certain color palette. Like if I picked these certain colors for this reason, can I make them work on a train or a locomotive, and will it look good? And I think I honestly accomplished that. Another reason was because Disneyland has the number 5 Ward Kimball. I felt like it was a thing that I wanted to honor one of his cartoon characters, and also it being my favorite cartoon character, I honored Snow White. So, you know, it kind of is a mirror image of the Ward Kimball out at the Disneyland Railroad, but it's a, you know, Walt Disney World Railroad locomotive. Plus, it goes well with my consist, because my consist of cars that I built and that I am building is a bunch of fantasy cars, so they like represent different Disney rides or attractions or characters and things like that. So, let me show you the locomotive. I'll pull her up here. This is the Walt Disney World Railroad number 5. I named it Snow White after, of course, the Disney princess and one of Ward Kimball's famous cartoons. He actually developed Snow White, Jiminy Cricket, a bunch of different ones, Dumbo, Casey Jr., the list goes on and on. He was one of Walt's original 9 old men, one of the head Disney animators. He was also a big train nerd. As evidenced by his Grizzly Flats Railroad. If you guys don't know what that is, Ward Kimball had a full-size narrow gauge railroad in his backyard in California, which I've actually emulated on a smaller scale, but in the back of my apartment complex. My neighbors think I'm completely insane, but they all love it. They think it's great. It's different. This is number 5. This is Snow White. The color combination, if you guys can't tell, I took it from her dress. Now, the colors I used, they're very vibrant and they pop, and they're, you know, it's a really unique and bright color palette. And it actually took me, I'd say, a good 2 or 3 weeks to figure out how I wanted to use these colors. I was gonna use them no matter what. Like, that was the thing. But I must have taken 3 or 4 pictures of this engine and photoshopped colors in different spots, and this is actually what I finally came out with, and I love it. It just reminds me of a cookie, like a cake. It's so dainty, it's so pretty, it's elegant, but it's playful and it's cheerful. Some of the things I did on this locomotive, I actually completely changed the smokestack. It's a small tapered stack. I actually used the headlight off of the 119, which is the Premier Line locomotive. I modified it to work for the Rail King here. It just gives the engine that much of a different look that sets it apart from the park locomotives. However, it does look like something that they could maybe use in the park. Because it's a Baldwin Locomotive Works locomotive, I did do the Baldwin builder's plate in between the drivers. I just thought the gold and some of the more brass trims would just add to the elegance of this. My favorite part in this entire locomotive is this bell. It's like a photo etch metal and brass bell. It's got these really elegant curves and swirls and stuff, and that actually came off of the Premier Line locomotive as well. I did it in a red highlighting tone. I think it looks killer. Obviously, I numbered it number 5 because it would be the 5th locomotive on the Walt Disney World Railroad. Number 5 also was kind of like my lucky number throughout my entire life. Number 5 was always the number that was coming up with me, as well as number 17, which is kind of odd because number 17 was the day that Disneyland opened, and it's also my wife's birthday, so it kind of all works out. I got a lighted back head, gauges, firebox, flickering ashpan glow. I mean, it's got everything. I even have a small 3D printed model of Ward Kimball that operates the locomotive. He's on the other side, so you can't really see him. So now I'm going to pull this forward and let you guys take a peek at some of the custom cars that I did. So I'm going to do it with the sound off so it's not blaring loud, but I'll go nice and slow here. So the first car that I got here, this box car, this is actually, I call it an autograph car. And this actually came about when I first did Walter and I was doing a consist for him. I wanted something that would stand out and be different. So I had the brilliant idea of buying just a Rail King wood-sided boxcar, painted it red to match the locomotive, did my own logos, and I took it to the park and I had all the characters sign it. So once I got that all signed and stuff like that, I don't want to tell you what security, the kind of look security gave me bringing this into there. It was odd. I had all the characters sign it, and now it's a nice little interesting part of the layout. And, you know, the kids get a kick out of it because they see, you know, Snow White signed it, Ariel, Elsa, Anna, all that fun stuff. So the next car up is the Thunder Mountain Railroad car. This I built, say, about a year ago, maybe a little less. I actually designed it around the Big Thunder Mining Company, which is the company that technically owns the Thunder Mountain Railroad. I did the graphics like a Denver and Rio Grande with the swoosh logo. I thought it added to that and looked really, really cool and really, really different. Did some barrels and crates and stuff like that, tie downs in the locomotive and the rider car. I did weather it a little bit. The dynamite sticks are actually wire that I just cut to length, glued them in place. I even have the Thunder Mountain goat with a stick of dynamite in his hand, and on the other side, I don't know if you can see it very well, there is a miner going, no, come on, give me it back, give me it back. So I just thought that was kind of a cool thing. Now, another thing about this car is that when I went up to the Carrollwood meeting, Mr. Tony Baxter was there. Great guy. Talked to him for hours. You know, knew he designed Thunder Mountain, and I brought this car. Gentleman actually signed it for me on the bottom. So that's another one of my little treasures. I'll actually show you guys photos of that going on. The thing throughout that entire trip that actually like hit home with me, that honored me more than anything, is we went to the there was a live steamer club up there, and we went with Michael and Tony and all that, and we were riding the trains around and stuff like that. And my one buddy that was with me, that's an engineer on the railroad, he was talking with some of the guys, like, oh yeah, you know, Carmine did a bunch of these model trains, you should come out there and see him. So Tony and Michael came out, because Michael knew about my model trains. And when I put the case down and opened it up, Tony Baxter said, wow, these are astonishing, and took pictures. And it's actually funny because my buddy got a picture of Tony Baxter taking pictures of my models, and to hear that from a Disney legend that, wow, these are astonishing, like, that was the biggest compliment I think anyone's could have ever paid me. Like I said, Tony Baxter was a great guy. I talked to him for hours. We did a luncheon and stuff like that, you know, just picked his brain. Great guy, you know, can't say enough good things about him and Mike. So next car up is the Big Thunder Mining Company, but this is a gold car. Obviously, Big Thunder Mountain mines gold. So I took a standard Lionel mint car, stripped it all down, repainted it. And I actually repainted it in the colors of the Thunder Mountain locomotives. So you will see the red, the black, the brown, different things like that. What I did do differently is I put lights inside of this to help the gold sparkle and illuminate. So it's got 2 nano chip LEDs in the top, and it actually looks really, really cool at night. So next car I think is my favorite car, is the Cinderella depressed center flat car. This came out of the whole idea of, this was actually one of the first cars, let me back it up a little, I don't know if it's in camera frame, but this was actually one of the first cars I thought about doing. So I found a depressed center flat car, I found a model of Cinderella's carriage, I painted it, did whatever I had to do, did tie downs, and then I just kind of went a little bit nuts. I did the pumpkins, I did the vines, there's all vines in the truck and stuff like that. And honestly, it's really cool. It's different, it's elegant, it adds to like the flavor, you know, that the whole aspect that the railroad in the park does something. It transports vehicles and characters and things like that, and it's an interwoven part of the society of the Magic Kingdom, and that's what I really wanted to emulate. So that's the Cinderella car. I think that's one of my favorites. It's definitely cool. The next car I decided to do was the Alice in Wonderland car. Now everybody knows the teacups. The teacups are a very, very famous ride at the Magic Kingdom, both in Disneyland and here. So I did a couple of teacups. They do rotate. Did a custom 3D printed Cheshire Cat, small bottle with the Drink Me liquid. I even have the Drink Me label here. I have a small book that says Alice in Wonderland, a little bit of a little table, and I also have the Queen's playing cards. Now on the top of the car, I don't know if you can see it, but there is kind of like a purple and pink magenta wave pattern to emulate like the fantasy and like the trippy atmosphere that Alice in Wonderland emulates, as well as the car trucks being 2 different colors, and they're actually alternating on other sides. So this side that's purple, it's that dark magenta pink on the other side. The next car I just threw together just because I felt like I wanted just a unique, you know, just a simple piece of rolling stock, was a Walt Disney World Railroad refrigerator car. I'm still kind of debating on what I want to do with this. I may put more decals on it. I don't know. I just like it. It's simple. I really originally did it to go behind Roger Broggie because his consist is yellow. His passenger cars are actually yellow. So I did it just to kind of compliment Roger, but I just kind of like it. It's simple. The last car I have isn't actually something I did. I just always have it on this train because I thought it goes with it. It's an MTH model of the Carolwood Pacific caboose. The Carolwood Pacific being, like I said, the railroad Walt Disney had in his backyard. MTH made these. They made a very limited run of these. They were available at the Walt Disney Family Museum. I don't believe they're made anymore. Lowell Smith, which is the gentleman that makes the N-scale cars every year for like D23 and stuff like that, he actually produced these. They're wonderful little models. I have 2. I have one in the original box and I have one that I can run. I love it. It's just a great little car. It kind of goes with anything, especially Disney related, and it's just phenomenal. So that's my entire consist. I am going to go get one more car and I'll let you guys see that monstrosity. This thing. So when I set out to make a 20,000 Leagues car, I knew I always wanted to. The issue I ran into was, there was actually 2. The first one is, what scale can I make it so that it's believable? Because if I was to get a real 1/48 scale Nautilus, the thing would be like 4 feet or 5 feet long. It'd be huge. I mean, not that I wouldn't ever want that, like to put in a harbor or something, but I had to make it big enough to where it went with everything, where it kind of blended in well, but it was still realistic enough. So I ended up coming across a company that makes these resin molds. So that's what this is. This is a resin kit that I did of the Nautilus. So obviously I painted it up. I did more of like the bronze, like Jules Verne type scheme. I did some bronze chains, which actually are removable, because when I try and transport this car, I like to take the submarine off because God forbid something happened. But I did the car in like the steel graphite and the bronze colors to match the submarine and to match that steampunky version. And it's actually funny because I came out with this car and literally about a month later, Lowell Smith came out with his car for D23, which is the N-scale variant. So these only came out at D23. No one knew what was coming out until the day. And it was actually funny that this came out like 2 or 3 days before he put this one out. So it was kind of uncanny. So now I happen to have an N-scale version and an O-scale version. But it was just funny that great minds think alike, because I love Lowell Smith stuff. They're awesome. The car is a Atlas O 89 foot flat car, I believe. It's all die-cast metal. The thing weighs a ton. The stands I 3D printed for the submarine. I do have some foam on there to help protect the paint. I know that I also wanted to do something else in this flat car. I didn't want to just have the Nautilus on there. So for about a week, I tossed around ideas. I 3D printed some of the divers from 20,000 Leagues, but they were O scale, but they didn't look good with the submarine because they were so freaking big. And one day I was sitting at home and I was looking at a rubber squid I had, and I was like, oh my God, I know what I'm going to do. So I made a little box, which is what this is, drilled a bunch of holes in it, and put the squid arms in it. So now it looks like Captain Nemo finally got the giant squid, and I think it adds to it, and I think it looks really cool. I absolutely love it. And this car has definitely been a massive hit when I brought the train to shows and things like that. I don't like to bring the car very much because, like I said, it is so big and so heavy, and if something happens to it, I'm going to lose my mind. But it actually has a detailed wheelhouse, so if you look inside of there, there is the helm and the depth tubes and all that fun stuff. I was actually going to light this up, but I felt like with all the effort that went into it and me wanting to remove it, I didn't want any wires sticking out anywhere. I wanted it to be as clean as possible. And I figured, you know, this thing is not going to be lit when it's on the car. So I just kind of let it ride. I originally wanted to do the theme park ride itself, the vehicles. But I didn't want to just buy something ready to go. Like, I prefer to build it on my own. I went and looked for some different 3D files. There was really nothing out there. And then I just ended up settling on the actual vehicle because, to be honest with you, the Nautilus, not the theme park ride one, but the Nautilus is so iconic and it looks so cool that this is what I went with, and I just think it was the right decision, and everybody tends to love it. So I'm going to show you guys one more thing. It's my current work in progress, and then that'll be it. And I will also input some different photos and videos and stuff I have of my different trains running and my layouts and all that kind of stuff. So coming up is my last work in progress. Alrighty guys, this is my last work in progress. I finally decided to do the Disneyland Railroad locomotives. First locomotive I decided to do was the number 2 EP Ripley. It was also, from what I've read, it was Walt's favorite. So I thought it was necessary to do that, and eventually when I do a larger layout, I will like to have both sides of the Walt Disney World empire. So I'd like to have Disneyland as West Coast, and I'd like to have Walt Disney World as East Coast. And I plan on having both stations, so I thought making the locomotives interchangeable, I thought it was a smart decision. The livery I'm doing on this is actually for the Santa Fe and Disneyland Railroad, so I'm actually leaning more towards the opening day scheme in 1955 as opposed to the traditional Disneyland Railroad that you guys see today. Plus it gives me an excuse to do the Retlaw 1 passenger cars and the Retlaw 2 freight set with the CK Holiday, and I can't wait to start those. That's going to be a lot of fun, those passenger cars. Like I said, it's a work in progress. My basic paint and stuff's done. I'm currently working on my decals and stuff like this. I have my 3D printed smokestack, 3D printed headlight. My cab interior is all there. I did the oil burning firebox door. I was gonna do a flickering ash pan and firebox on this thing, but there is, when I tell you there is no room in these things, these 440s, I didn't think that there was really no room. Like, the motor is literally up against the back head. There's no possible way that I can route wires efficiently with plugs that I can take the top off if I need to do maintenance without it becoming an absolute headache. Like, I can't even fathom it. So it's not going to get those things. But what it's going to make up for in fancy things like that, I'll surpass it in paint and detail, hopefully. It's coming along great. So far, I'm in love with it. I plan on doing it a very high gloss, or as glossy as I can get it. You know, that's it, man. I'll keep posting updates and stuff like that on this locomotive on Instagram as I get other projects done, or as I start projects. You'll see it on there. I tend to use Instagram and Facebook as my, I guess you want to say, like my virtual diary on my projects that I do. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm always looking to help fellow modelers, especially with Disney related train things like that. I do custom models, so if you guys are interested in having one of these done for yourselves as a commission or whatever, please message me. I'll be more than happy to help you guys out. But I hope you enjoyed this little tour of my mini Magic Kingdom and its roster of locomotives and cars, and thanks for watching, guys.